Hi YouTube, we're here with the Aero Commander. Just doing some preliminary setup tonight. Got our maiden done tonight. Went really smooth. I added 3 drips of medium foam safe CA, which is this stuff. And I used Kicker to set it up. After I marked my position of the CG, I put this right in the middle, and that way I can take this plane and I can hold it with my thumb and forefingers, and then I can just rest it. That'll tell you if you're CG'd out, which is super handy because it's basically got a little knob there for you to hit. It's very difficult to check the CG in the field. So what we've been working on is, like I said, I'm not keen to putting Velcro on my batteries because the Velcro always seems to be in a different position for every single plane. So I started by basically making this little thing that I just kept cutting and shaping, and then eventually I transitioned into something like this, which is made of paperboard from a Q-tip container, because you know I go through Q-tips like crazy. And what I decided I was going to go ahead and take that and change it into a plastic component. And so that's what we have here. And just to give you some idea of why, I turned on the scale. So this one here is about 2.8 grams, which surprisingly is not much difference. But this one's going to be better for wear and tear. This one will break down more easily, especially if it gets a little bit of moisture on it. So anyway, what we have here is we have a tray that's going to hold any of 3 combinations of wires, or excuse me, batteries. And while we're at it, I was just going to tell you, I was mentioning something about making a parallel connector. Well, these are 2 JST connections that will allow me to use those batteries together, which are 370 milliamp hours. So basically, between those 2 batteries, we can go ahead and make it into, what would that be, 740? I don't know. 300 times 2 would be 600 plus 140 would be 740. Okay? Or just drop that anywhere, Brian. Or I can use 1,000 milliamp hour, which is bigger than quoted. And incidentally, I can get it to CG out with any of those. The only difference is I did not have the XT60 adapter on there. So anyway, long and short of it is, I was going to use these buildable ends. That's the part number for Hobby King. That's the female end. The female socket. It's actually got pins. And then this is the other end here, guys. I was going to try to build that on, but I'll show you why I didn't do that. Basically, if you take this, you're supposed to be biting the cable sheath with this back part, and then the copper with the front part. Okay? If you do that, this won't slide in. So I decided against it, and I ended up using these parts. This is actually a finished end. Okay? I had one that was already chop sueyed, so I used that one. And then I used this, which is the other end. That's the end that's going to be receiving the battery connection, and then this is the end that we'll be putting back out into the plane itself. So, I want to let you guys see how I was going to do this, which was a very simple project. And then I'm going to show you how all this works together and why it's so critical that we have that little tray that I designed, which is super simple and also annoying at the same time, because why do they not come with these things installed is what I've never figured out. Okay, so we got all sorts of different heat shrink here. What we need to do is we need to get the smallest heat shrink and use the least amount. So I'm going to go ahead and get that worked out, and I'll unpause it for you. Alright guys, so you can see I've got this heat shrink on here, but as you can probably imagine, if I try to solder this right now, it's going to shrink down the heat shrink. So I have to pull these off, and then we're going to solder these to tin the ends. Okay? And when I say tin, I mean kind of soak the copper with solder. And the reason we do that is because it gives more weight, so it'll fall off on the ground. But the other cool reason we do that is because that's how you will have an easier time connecting the other wire when you go to solder it back together there. You could do it dry and that's perfectly fine, but we're going to have to heat it too long, which means the heat shrink is going to basically shrink down on us. Okay, now this end already has some tinning on it. And one little tip is when you're looking at these wires, you can see that the black lead there, for example, it's about doubly as long, okay? That's not necessarily a problem, but it's wasted weight in this application. This is an ultra micro plane, so you want to be very careful about the weight. Okay, so you see how I've done that? I'm just laying that in position, and I'm getting everything as ready as I can. Now I'm going to go ahead and slide this heat shrink over, and I have to work fairly quick, and it may shrink down that little bit on the end, and that's just life. We'll have to slip it over the end though, but you'll notice I picked the fatter side of wires than the thinner, so we should hypothetically be able to slide it down, but we'll see. Sometimes these things are easier said than done. So we got that solder joint done. You see how quick we did that? And that's a solid quality solder joint, okay? Now normally I would not worry so much about this at the beginning, but in this case I really need to slide this over so that as I solder the other half, it doesn't prematurely heat and shrink the heat shrink for the negative side. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and do this right now. Now one other trick you can do is, if you wanted, you can actually take your pins out of these style, not these style, they get compression fit in there. But these you can actually take them out and then you can slide your heat shrink over the other way too. But I'm just going to do it this way because it's quicker and easier. In this application at least. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend those wires. I got to get my heat shrink slid over. It's like if you would forget to put that heat shrink on, you still got a backup plan. Alright guys. So I'm going to get the solder. Clean the tip really good so you're not fighting stuff like that. Get that thing nice and warm, toasty. On the side you can tolerate the heat on. And then you want to figure out a way you can manipulate this so that it'll actually move into the position neutrally. Because once you heat it, it's going to relax somewhat, and you want it to relax into the solder joint. So if you know what I'm trying to say, guys, you want the two wires to be like pushing against each other neutrally. You don't want to be like this, you have to like hold it there because it's just going to spring back as soon as you let go of it. I hope that makes sense. Anybody who's soldered knows exactly what I'm talking about. And Windex. This is going to lubricate the wire as I pull the heat shrink over, which has partially shrunk, but just barely. Okay, then we can take this. Of course, you're going to have to evaporate the Windex, which is no big deal. Okay, there you go. There you have it, guys. Okay, so now we have a parallel connector here, so I'm going to pause it and I'll show you what we're going to use next. Alright guys, so basically the way this works is I designed this to fit into the plane, obviously. And the way it works is it goes back just so far, but then it also slips under the lip there, so it has nowhere to go. And while we are going to put a very small piece of Velcro on there just to kind of give it that added, gravity hold, this is kind of the ticket right here. It's just a piece of plastic, same plastic I used from this Q-tip container, and I CA'd it, I cut a slit and slipped it in, and then CA'd it and kickered it. And then I made this tail that's just loose, and it slides through this side. There's a pocket similarly located on the other side. And so the idea is, what you can do is you can take your battery, whatever battery size you want, and you can slip this strap through, okay? And then you just pull the strap until it's tight to your liking, okay? And then in my case, I can do that with 1, 2, or I can do it with a bigger one. And see how easy this works? And then I can slip this in here and it fits perfectly so that it's not going to have anywhere to go. And the idea is then you can set your CG exactly where you want. And you can see that's tail heavy, right? Because it's not balancing. So all you have to do is just adjust. And you can see how much it's biting right now. It's biting really hard, which is great. You don't need it to be so hard that it couldn't possibly move. You see what I'm talking about, guys? Look at that. It's CG'd a little bit, I would say, toward the tail heavy side. So this one needs to come up just a hair more. And the thing is, I was thinking about my voltage alarm. I did leave room for a voltage alarm in here if I wanted, but I don't think I'm going to probably use a voltage alarm because I have low voltage protection on this plane. Okay? So that's the median CG point. And you can see it's just resting on the tips of the glue. I don't know if you guys can see the glue up in there, but that glue is what's pressing down on the tip of my finger. And incidentally, this little thing I built to hold UMX planes when I'm working. So anyway, that works really nice. So now I'm going to show you with another battery real quick, and then we'll be done for now. Because, I mean, this is a really critical, and I just took a piece of tape and stuck it down here so I could pull this out easily. And you're just adding a very small amount, less than 3 grams of weight total for this. And just for reference, okay, so this is 0.3 grams. We're probably going to use another, I would say, whatever the difference is, we're going to have 3 grams total in this. And you can see I cut holes in it with a hole punch. Okay, so now if I want to use 2 batteries, the critical idea here, guys, is that you can use a variety of different packs, but you can also adjust for the CG without having to have a crystal ball, because sometimes these things come and you're like, how am I supposed to know exactly where to put the Velcro, first of all, because I don't know exactly where the Velcro is going to end up. Then second of all, I don't know for sure which batteries I'm going to use, because I use a variety of batteries personally. Okay, so you see how I can just kind of cinch that in there, and you see it's not super tight with 2, but if I really decided to use 2, then I can tuck this up under the battery, that little tail. Okay, so basically I just need to get this in there, and then I just tuck this underneath that lead. Okay, see, now that stops the batteries from being able to move. Now the other thing is, in this application, if I'm doing them parallel, I'm going to have this parallel adapter in here, which is going to give us 700 and something odd milliamps. Milliamp hours, technically, I think is what that would be. But either way, because look at this now. Okay, so we got the adapter in there. We got both batteries ready to rock. And then, of course, we could plug that in, which I'm not going to exactly plug it in, but I do need that to be more or less where it's going to sit in flight, so you can get the CG worked out. Since we're not flying right now, I'm just kind of showing you how this works. Okay, so obviously that goes on there. I can pick this up with the hand, put my finger on there. You see we're nose heavy, okay? So super easy process. You just reach in there and you have to hold that strap and then push it back a little bit. Now, of course, you could have Velcro in there and that would probably be fine, but like I said, I don't like having Velcro on all my batteries, because then you have to have Velcro on like every side of your batteries. Next thing you know, you can't slide your batteries into conventional openings. So if you knew for sure you were only going to use these batteries on this plane, no big deal, right? But right there, look at that. And then after I make mods to this plane, I can CG it out. See how nice that works? And then if I pull the gear, I can quickly CG it out. The idea is you need to make it accessible and useful for normal everyday flights. Okay? So those are held in there plenty good. Now watch this, guys. Upside down. This is without Velcro. Okay? See, it wants to pop down a little bit. So all I have to do is just do one little teeny tiny piece of Velcro. And by the way, I wanted to demonstrate something. When you're flying, it's very uncommon that you would have this type of an effect, okay? Because your plane would be stopping, meaning you'd be crashing, or maybe having a rough landing. But if you're landing upside down, I'm pretty sure you're not going to be taken back off. You don't do touch and goes when you're landing upside down, typically. You have to be a little better pilot than me, I think. Okay, so let's just show you how this works. This is 1000 milliamp, and this goes all the way back to the end. And that's part of the reason why I want to show you this too, guys. Because this 1000 milliamp hour, what I would do is I would just intentionally pack all the wires back. Okay, so you see how this works? It just tucks under and blammo whammo, ready to go. Now the other thing I had thought about, rather than having any Velcro, is to just have one plug of foam. And foam is relatively light, and it would just be this sort of stuff. Or something like this. I don't even know what this is, but it must have come off of something. But you would just stick that in there, and it would just put some pressure so that there's nowhere for the battery to go while you're flying. So that's kind of my alternate idea to actually using a little chunk of Velcro. Okay, so let's just demonstrate that this is going to work. So you see this battery has an XT60 on it. So I'm going to stick it back here. Now, I don't know why I would need to use a 1000 milliamp hour battery right now, because you saw it today. My flight was really long. Okay, look at that, guys. CG's out just perfectly. Just perfectly. And just so you don't think I'm blowing smoke here, I've got this little CG tester thing. I'm going to scooch my pillows back. And then I'm just going to stick that there. Now let's look where it is. Oh, this might be a little awkward. Look at that, guys. We're right where we need to be. Those 4 dots. That's the front and the back of the 18 millimeters compared to 23 millimeters. Look how nice that's balanced. It's beautiful. So anyway, I wanted to show you guys how I intend to deal with that annoyance. Now, of course, this plane is quite a bit heavier with a bigger battery. It may not perform real great with a bigger battery. But honestly, I have no intentions of flying this with anything more than one of the 370 milliamp hour Turnigy Nanotech 25 through 40C packs, because I use these in my Consendo when I really want to make it light. And just so you know, these are 25 through 50C, the bigger one is. So it might be a little bit more crazy power on demand. But anyway, that's what I did, guys. As you can see, it's just this simple thing. Just started with cardboard and plastic and just cut it until it fit perfectly. Then I just worked it one step at a time until I got it where I wanted. That's about it, guys, for tonight. Now, the only other thing I got to try to do, and we might do it real quick on this video, is we need to try to take this play out, okay? Because what happens is the wheel is allowed to turn one way, it's got resistance, but the other way it's dot. And the problem with that is the torque roll kind of pushes you that way. So what I'd really like to do is I would like to see, just in a test, how much of a difference it makes. See, just stopping that from playing into the side makes a humongous difference. I'm just kind of sticking my pinky in there. And it's a lot more even amount of resistance. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably go ahead and do this an easy way. I've done this before, and I've done it a variety of ways. One way has been with toothpicks or something of the sort. What I'll do is I'll stick a toothpick into the foam. Now you'll notice the foam is fairly thin there, but down below it's not so thin. Okay, so what you'll do is you'll basically just stick this into the foam. You got to avoid this little adjustment. And what you're going to do is you're just going to stick it in the foam. And you see how I'm lifting. I'm actually pulling up the control arm. Okay, so we've done nothing there, right? Well, we haven't done nothing yet, because what we're going to do is we're going to mark that now. And then we're going to cut a slit in it. And it will work great. Okay, and then we'll CA the whole job together. Okay, so we mark just past where we need it. Okay? Now we take something like side cutters and we cut at the mark. Okay, very simply. Then we take this and we throw it in our scrap. And then we take what we cut and we take something like a knife and then we make a slit. And watch, we're just going to use a very sharp X-Acto knife to do this. Okay. Just like that. And the idea is we kind of want to just take, that worked really good. We just want to take a little bit of a groove out. And really what I need is I need my saw like this. And that saw has a very fine tooth on it. So now I'm just going to work that saw blade until we have a little bit of a groove in it. Okay, then you put your saw back where your saw belongs. And then you come over here and you slide that back into the hole, lifting the wire out of the way as you do it. Okay, now I got to be careful. I made this too long, so it's trying to penetrate out. So here's how you fix that. You chop off the tip. Now that you made your hole, you can gain a little bit more depth. Okay, so you go back in the same hole, same angle. You slide it in, and you see you don't have any penetration out there. So now all you have to do is get that thing glued in there. And in this case, I'm probably going to use a little piece of, I want to use a little piece of tubing or something to catch that. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get away with using the tubing like I have in the past. Okay, so let that fall. You see how it's in the groove? See, because you're only trying to stop that one direction of travel. Okay? You're not even really trying to stop it, you're just trying to resist the deflection as this wants to bend. Okay? See? So once that thing's glued, then it will more or less be where it needs to be. Now make sure you're into your groove. Make sure your groove is aligned properly. Then you can go ahead and glue it. Use these needle nose pliers here. Just give it a little twist. Okay, right there. That's where I want it to relax to. Now I'm going to take the gap filling and some kicker. Okay? And I'm going to go just like this. Right on the top of the side. I'm going to let that sit. Oop. One spritz of kicker. One more drip. And just let that drip do its thing. And that's pretty much all you have to do to give yourself that extra side load protection. So now, see what's going on now? Because that side wasn't near as bad. But now, if you want to try to keep it from playing either direction, generally, then all you have to do is just put something over the top of that, which is super easy as well. So now we'll take that same piece that we just threw out, which is right here. We're going to take and we're going to make the top the other half, because I like the way that that worked when it was better supported. Okay, so I'm just diving this in. Very limited amount of pressure, and you can see there's a groove now. Okay. This isn't the only way you can do this, guys. I don't want you to think that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not at all. I want to see if this is going to work. Because really, it's pretty simple what we're talking about doing here. We're just trying to arrest it from moving. Okay, I'm going to try. I got to go look for something. I'll be right back. Okay, so I changed gears a little bit here. I'm going to take this straw remnant, and I'm just going to do it this way. This will be a little bit more secure way of doing it. Okay, so I just took that little bit of straw. Now, you wouldn't have to use foam safe glue here, but I think it might be a good idea to use the foam safe glue. Okay, so I'm going to hold this. I'm going to put a drip of CA, pretty good drip. Okay, I'm going to get my kicker. I'm going to put some kicker onto that piece. Now, why are we doing that? Because we don't want the glue to hold the linkage in place. Okay, I can't quite, dang it, can't quite make the angle that I'm trying to make with my fingers. So I'm going to use this tool to hold it, so I can hold it underneath and get the glue to bond. Okay. Here we go, guys. There we go. Okay, so then we can use a little bit of kicker to let that set up. And obviously you want to make sure that that doesn't get glued together, but it's really not a big deal if it did. It's just like, okay, just unglue it now. So I'm actually just going to lift that out of the way and get one big drip on there. Like I said, this glue is not super critical if it gets in that area, because we can just take it out again if we need to. Okay. See what I'm doing? I'm just grabbing that glue and just moving it out of the way, because I want the glue to go down below, not right where it is. Okay, so we got that. Ah, dang it, popped off. Okay, I'm gonna get it set again and I'll come right back to you. Okay, so I think it's gonna be a little easier to just do this. So I just pulled it out, which is not a big deal. Don't be afraid to just undo stuff once in a while. So now I'm going to hold this. Then I'm going to take some glue and I'm going to just get it glued to the bottom first, so we don't have to fight quite as much. And I have a little bit longer piece this time too. Okay. Now if you really wanted to make it super secure, you could make it so that this thing will slide actually into the foam. But we're going to be able to make this a whole lot more secure now that we're doing it out here, where we have better control of it. Okay. Get a little kicker on there. Let it set up. And then just a little bit more glue superficially. And that will be a pretty strong little joint. So now obviously here when we put this back in, we'll be wrapping this around. We may need to trim it a little bit. No big deal if we have to do that. And that's going to keep that linkage. In fact, we can trim it now because we know we're going to be a little bit too long. Okay. Alright, so now that stuff is all set up. So we can take this CA. We'll actually coat the tip this time. And remember, this is the amount of pressure that's going to come from this device is just going to be very limited. But it's enough that can kick the plane into a curb and damage it, which is going to be annoying. Okay, so we'll get that back in there. Oh, goodness gracious. I'm just having material conflicts today. Okay, guys, so I use this other CA that's not foam safe, and it seems to have held up a lot better. So you can see exactly what we're going to be doing here now. It's very simple application. Of course, it's a little harder to actually do it, especially when you're filming. Okay, so that's going to be the bottom side. That's going to be the top side. Okay, so we're just going to come back over here. We're going to try again, right? So we'll take our foam safe CA. Get a little bit on there. Then we'll get that glued back in where it belongs. Just a little kiss of kicker. And then when we're all said and done, we'll just wrap something around there. Okay? And then we'll glue it back on. So you can see how this is exactly going to work. It's going to stop it from wanting to wander, which is going to make a huge difference in strength. So I'm going to pause it and I'll show you what it looks like when we're done here. Alright guys, we're trying something different. We're going to use a piece of string. And we're just going to glue the string on the bottom and then we're going to wrap it around, because I'm getting frustrated with this now. Okay, so just a little bit of kicker. Make that set up. It feels very strong already. And remember, all we're trying to do is just keep this thing in position. Very simply put. And it looks like this is going to work really good. So I can just clip that string. Just regular, like a cotton-based string of some sort. I don't exactly know what it was from. Okay, so we're going to get a little kicker on this. Let it set up. And then look how perfect that works now, guys. There's just a very limited amount of play. And that's all I got for you tonight, guys. This plane is awesome. I'm really excited about it. I hope to share more mods with you, maybe some flaps, maybe some LEDs, depending on what the board will let me do. But for now, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.